Equity investing has had its coming of age moment in recent years, particularly post the pandemic. Since then, millions of investors have entered the market, often jumping in with both feet. Today, I'm going to discuss one such couple that historically only occasionally dabbled in public market equities, relying mostly on sporadic tips, resulting in a somewhat haphazard investment process. Since 2021, though, they began investing in a structured and disciplined manner, avoiding individual stocks entirely and focusing just on professionally managed mutual funds. At the time of investing, the investors allocated roughly two-thirds of their portfolio to equity funds and the remaining primarily to fixed deposits to act as an anchor and help with day-to-day expenses. The couple has only invested through direct plans, thereby saving them fees that they otherwise would have paid to an advisor. Now, though, particularly following the last 18 months of returns, they felt they needed some help with their portfolio. I'm Krish Kothari, and in this video, I'm going to break down and analyze this equity mutual fund portfolio worth over 63 crores. I will discuss the different funds constituting the portfolio, how those funds performed, what explains that performance, and importantly, what changes we recommended to the portfolio. My ultimate hope, though, is that as I walk you through each of these, it makes you think more deeply about your own portfolio. The first thing that you will notice about this mutual fund portfolio is that it only comprises equity funds. Other than these investments in equity funds, they have about 15 crores in fixed deposits and some gold, both of which they consider their primary nest egg and are therefore reluctant to risk in any way. The interest from the fixed deposits largely pays for their day-to-day living and lifestyle expenses, which is why the value of the fixed income allocation has remained relatively constant, while the salience of the equity mutual fund allocation has increased significantly. The husband is semi-retired and the wife is a homemaker, both in their early 70s. I must add here, and I do so as a compliment to them, that both of them are actively involved in building the portfolio as well as monitoring and administering it on a continuing basis. The investors do not foresee any need for the money and ultimately want to leave it all to their children, which is what allows them to maintain an equity heavy portfolio since they are effectively investing with the time horizon of much younger people. The portfolio comprises 11 funds, including 3 flexi cap funds, 3 mid cap funds, 2 small cap funds, and 1 each from the large cap, multi cap, and focused categories. Let's analyze the 11 funds category wise to understand how each of them has performed, starting with the 3 flexi cap funds. As is the case with most mutual fund portfolios I see, the first fund is the Parag Parikh Flexi Cap, by far the largest single mutual fund in the country. Along with the PPFAS Flexi Cap, they also own the Bandhan and UTI Flexi Cap funds. The original allocations to individual funds in a given category were identical. Therefore, for example, each of the 3 Flexi Cap funds got 5 crores of the total 32.5 crores initially invested. Additionally, they invested all the money as lump sums over a brief period of time in 2021 and gave themselves a 5-year horizon to evaluate performance. Interestingly, Parag Parikh was the only one of the 3 in the Flexi Cap category that beat the benchmark. The UTI Flexi Cap was the obvious laggard, and it was in fact the worst performing fund in the entire portfolio. The Bandhan Flexi Cap underperformed marginally. Similarly with the 3 mid-cap funds, one outperformed, one underperformed, and one essentially matched the index. The Motilal Oswal Mid-Cap Fund was a clear winner in this category, and in fact was the single best performing fund in the portfolio. The Kotak Mid-Cap Fund performed almost entirely in line with the benchmark, while the Mirae Asset Mid-Cap Fund underperformed by close to 1%. Between the 2 small cap funds, one outperformed and one underperformed. You may be noticing a pattern here. The Axis Small Cap Fund marginally beat its benchmark, while its Kotak counterpart was another clear laggard in the portfolio. Somewhat surprisingly, it was in the large cap space that the portfolio enjoyed the most dramatic outperformance, with the ICICI Large Cap Fund, the erstwhile blue chip fund of ICICI Prudential. It is genuinely remarkable when a large cap fund has this kind of outperformance over a meaningful period of time. Once again, the ICICI Prudential Multi-Cap Fund was a clear outperformer, beating its benchmark by 260 basis points. A genuine tip of the hat to the folks at ICICI Prudential. Rounding out our portfolio, we have the Aditya Birla Focus Fund, which almost exactly matched its benchmark. Now, despite the presence of underperforming funds, the portfolio as a whole actually performed admirably. It grew at about 14.3% over these 5 years, converting 32.5 crores into about 63.5 crores, a roughly 95% gain in absolute terms. Given the wide range of funds, the natural instinct is to compare the portfolio to the Nifty 500 TRI. Over these 5 years, that benchmark returned about 12.5%. This means that the portfolio outperformed that total return index by about 1.8%, a genuinely noteworthy outcome against a formidable opponent. But what if we use all the relevant benchmarks at the corresponding weights? If instead of the individual funds, they had simply invested the aggregate category amount in each of the category benchmarks, the portfolio would have compounded at about 14.5%, and the portfolio would be worth almost 50 lakhs more. This begs the question, what went wrong? The answer to that question lies in portfolio construction and underlying allocations. Think about what they really own through these mutual funds. The 11 funds own 74 stocks each on average. Across the 11 funds, there are more than 800 holdings, including over 450 unique stocks. The portfolio had inadvertently become a broad-based index representative of the wider market. Therefore, the final outcome was likely to roughly replicate the broader indices on a weighted average basis. The portfolio was simply exposed to too many underlying stocks to have a meaningful chance of outperformance. The fund selection was actually quite commendable. Only 3 of the 11 meaningfully underperformed their respective benchmarks, while 4 materially outperformed theirs. But the net result, with so many funds and underlying stocks, is the rough recreation of a broad index. Just 18 of the over 450 unique underlying stocks have weights of over 1% in the portfolio. The average unique stock accounts for just 22 basis points of the total portfolio. It is next to impossible to outperform over time with such a high degree of diversification. Outperformance requires a certain amount of concentration, even in mutual funds. To their credit, the investors did not chop and change and gave their portfolio 5 years, which, as we are repeatedly told, is necessary with equity investments to see how things play out. But as we have seen, the portfolio was likely to underperform given its fundamental construction. So here's how we went about fixing that structural problem. The first step, which many may consider counterintuitive, was to understand whether the need for alpha truly exists for our investors. This seems like a silly question. After all, who doesn't want to outperform? But keeping in mind the larger goals and risk profile of our investors, benchmark performance and corresponding risk management may not be a bad outcome going ahead, particularly when you consider the relative ease of managing the portfolio. Just buying 1 or 2 broad-based index funds could have replicated the portfolio performance. So spending your time and energy agonizing over which fund to invest in, periodically rebalancing and constantly monitoring changes to underlying portfolios may not actually be worth the while of many investors, particularly DIY investors. In this case, they remain eager to invest in actively managed mutual funds and believe in the scope to generate alpha over time by doing so. With that in mind, the first thing we did is take an axe to the portfolio. As is the case with many things in life, less is often more. We reduced the number of funds from 11 to 3. This seems extreme, but let's do the same exercise to figure out the underlying exposures. Across the 3 funds, we now have 90 unique stocks, down from over 450, and 80% reduction in number of unique holdings. Think about your portfolio of direct stock holdings. You probably have somewhere between 10 and 50 stocks. So despite an 80% reduction in the number of unique underlying holdings, it is still a well-diversified portfolio. The average fund now owns 34 stocks instead of 74. The average weight of a unique underlying stock is now 5 times more. And a third of the unique holdings account for at least 1% of the equity weight in the portfolio, in addition to creating scope for outperformance. Reducing the number of funds owned dramatically reduces the complexity of managing the portfolio. This is a really important point that rarely gets the attention it deserves. We did also discuss increasing the non equity allocations in the overall portfolio. I was keen that they reduce the overall salience of equity in the portfolio so that they have a larger and more stable cash flow to live their lives, even at the cost of some potential returns. As a result, the overall equity exposure is reduced, creating a more even balance between equity and debt in the portfolio. The primary reason for doing so, despite their desire to maximize what they leave their heirs, is to ensure greater peace of mind for them. I have to add two things before I go. The first is that this portfolio is representative of many mutual fund portfolios of all sizes. If you do not understand the true spread of ownership, you may be inadvertently eliminating any chance you have of outperformance. Ask yourself, have you just gone about recreating an index fund through multiple different actively managed equity funds? The second, and arguably more important, is the value of being dispassionate. Let the data drive your decisions. Our investors did not have an ego about course correcting or seeking advice. This, despite a perfectly respectable track record over 5 years. They were not married to any position and far more interested in being clinical and objective. These are surprisingly rare traits. All of us would do well to be more of both when investing. I hope you found this video useful because it pushed you to think more deeply about your own portfolio. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.